another episode of our care guide series, and in today's video we're going to be covering the care for beautiful Phalaenopsis orchids. Now, orchids are a really popular houseplant because they have long-lasting blooms, they're relatively easy maintenance, and they make a great gift for any type of occasion. Whether you're talking about Valentine's Day, Christmas, really any occasion, these are one of the most gifted plants. So in today's video, we're going to cover how to care for these in terms of watering, lighting, humidity, repotting, as well as fertilizing. So we'll start off with the lighting. Orchids are epiphytes, which means they grow on top of trees and rock formations in the jungle. So they're only getting diffuse lighting coming through the tops of the trees. So in your home, these will thrive in medium to bright, indirect, or diffused lighting. You want to avoid direct sun. Now, in terms of watering, there's many different ways that people like to water orchids. One method is to soak the roots in water for a few minutes, then removing it and allow the excess water to drain out. Typically, this is fine if your orchid is potted in orchid bark medium. If it's potted in moss, we don't really recommend this method because the moss will hold too much moisture. Now, for the watering, generally it's every 7 to 10 days. You want to wait till your orchid is getting a little bit dry. Another really popular method that you might have heard of before is the ice cube method. So you're going to want to take 3 ice cubes. You're going to sit them on top of the orchid media. You don't want to sit it on top of the leaves, the ice cubes, so put it on top of the media and it will melt and water your orchid. It's really hard to overwater using this method, so that's why it's a really popular method. Now, because conditions vary from home to home, a good starting point is using 3 ice cubes a week and then see how your plant reacts. An easy way to tell if it's getting enough water or not enough water is by taking a look at the root system. Now, if you look at the root system, roots that are silvery gray, they need some more moisture. They're not going to have enough. If your roots are nice and translucent green, that means that you have plenty of moisture and it's doing well. So that's it in terms of watering. Humidity, regular household humidity, they're usually fine with it. In terms of repotting, they don't need to be repotted very often, typically only every few years. Once the plant has grown a lot, there's no more room for the roots to grow, then it might be a good time to repot. Now, when you're repotting, there's a few important things to consider. You're going to want to use fresh orchid potting mix, like this stuff here. This is a great medium to pot your orchids in. You're also going to want to make sure that you're using a pot that has really good airflow for the roots. That's why orchid pots like these are popular, because they have slits on the side, which allows the roots to breathe. Because they're epiphytes, they grow on trees, they have a really good airflow, and you want to replicate those conditions when you're potting up your orchid. That's a really important thing. Also, when you're repotting, you're going to want to wait until the blooms are done before you actually repot it. Finally, I'm going to cover a few frequently asked questions that we often get regarding orchids. Number one, people often ask, how often does the orchid bloom and how long do the blooms last? So typically, Phalaenopsis orchids will bloom about once a year. Normally starts somewhere around the fall and it will last for several months throughout the year, generally into the summertime. Now, this is part of the reason that orchids are so popular, because of their long-lasting blooms. Now, once the blooms fall off in the summertime, what do? You're going to want to cut off the bloom spike right down to where the leaves are. And after the blooms fall off in the summertime, it's going to go through a period of growth where you'll get probably a couple new leaves that will come out before it will produce a new bloom spike in the fall season. Now, another really popular question that we get is, how do I get my orchid to rebloom? So there's a few different things that you can do to help it bloom again. Now, in our homes, the orchids often have really consistent warm temperatures. So sometimes we have to help them to realize that it's fall and it's time to produce a new bloom spike. So one way that we can do this in the fall is to allow the orchid to experience some colder temperatures down to about 15 degrees at night for several nights to help it realize, okay, it's fall and I need to produce a new bloom spike. The other really important thing to get orchids to rebloom is they need to have a really healthy root system. So ways that you can ensure this is make sure your orchid roots have a good airflow. That's why orchid pots are a really helpful tool, because they have slits, and basically it allows the roots to have good airflow to mimic the conditions it has in the wild. And orchids need a good strong root system in order to rebloom. That's it for this week's video. If you have any questions, drop them down in the comments below.
Thanks for watching. Please subscribe, like, and comment.